Welcome to the Real Python Podcast. This is episode 266. When converting an existing REST API to Model Context Protocol, what should you consider? What are the anti-patterns to avoid polluting an AI agent's context? This week on the show, Kyle Stratis returns to discuss his upcoming book, AI Agents with MCP. Kyle's been busy since he last appeared on the show in 2020. He's taken his experience working in machine learning startups and started his own consultancy, Stratis Data Labs. He's been documenting his explorations working with LLMs and MCP on his blog, The Signal Path. Kyle is also writing a book about building MCP clients, services, and end-to-end agents. We discuss a recent article he wrote about the hazards of using an automated tool to convert a REST API into an MCP server. He shares his personal experiences building MCP tools and a collection of additional resources for you to learn more about the topic. Later in the show, I also have a short conversation with previous guest and Real Python team member Stephen Gruppetta about the upcoming live courses he's hosting, Python for Beginners, Code with Confidence. This episode is sponsored by InfluxData. Stuck with slow, time series data queries? It's not your code, it's your database. Traditional databases weren't built for timestamped data. InfluxDB was. Handle millions of data points per second, while competitors wait for dashboards to load. When you use the right tool for time series data, everything becomes faster, simpler, and more effective. Stop waiting. Start building at influxdata.com/realpython. All right, let's get started. The Real Python Podcast is a weekly conversation about using Python in the real world. My name is Christopher Bailey, your host. Each week, we feature interviews with experts in the community and discussions about the topics, articles, and courses found at realpython.com. After the podcast, join us and learn real-world Python skills with a community of experts at realpython.com. All right, Kyle Stratis back on the show. You were back in episode 10, and now I think you came back on and talked with David and I about a few other things. But we were discussing back data engineering then.
Yep.
It's going to be awesome to catch up with you. So how are things?
Yeah, it's only been 250 episodes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot of life and career changes in a way over that time.
Yeah.
I think in the intervening time, I became a dad.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. That's exhausting, but the best thing ever. Went to Greece a couple times and made that an annual thing.
Yeah. We talked about Greece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I worked, I think I had just started working or was about to start working.
Visit? Is that right?
At Visit, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that ended last October, and I took the opportunity to kind of go independent.
Yeah, that's cool.
I really love the freedom that affords. It's very hectic. There's way less free time, but there's still that feeling of freedom.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that. I started writing a book, which has been a career goal of mine kind of from the beginning.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's all about Model Context Protocol and how to build agents with it. It's aptly titled AI Agents with MCP.
There you go.
Yeah, it'll be out from O'Reilly. Hopefully, I think around May of next year, but it's an early release now. So
people who, could check it out and see the progress as you go.
Exactly.
Yeah?
You can see how it works and how terrible of a writer I am before the editors come and clean it all up. But I do credit Joanna when she was with Real Python, like upping my writing game.
Lots of advice.
Yeah, she was amazing, and I credit a lot of my writing opportunities since then to her and her editing and her feedback.
Cool. I'll have to let her know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You're digging into a variety of things. You've been staying current. Obviously, the AI stuff has been a change for a lot of us. And I thought we could kind of jump on that MCP thing because you did write about it recently you have a blog. It's called The Signal Path.
Yes.
What are you writing on there?
Yeah, so I decided to kind of get back into an email newsletter that's kind of focused on AI, machine learning, all that sort of stuff, but more on news and kind of new things that come out. Like the rate of change in this field is crazy, and not just because of generative AI, but like that is a big component of it right now. But even before that, when I was doing a lot of work in like computer vision, things were changing constantly, and there's so much hype, and so I wanted to just bring a more balanced technical viewpoint to things, and I'm publishing semi-irregularly just because I'm super heads down with client work and the book and all that. But I'm keeping up with interesting things that I would like rant about on like Blue Sky or LinkedIn or something, and putting it kind of more in one place. And then I also have my personal blog at kylestratis.com that's just more durable stuff. So a lot of technical stuff, but also random stuff about like travel, anything that's kind of interesting to me at the time.
Yeah, what's Kyle up to?
Yeah, exactly. I love to write. It's just like I always have this urge to like write stuff down.
Yeah.
I come from a family of writers, so I think that there's something in the blood, or some kind of mental deficiency we all have that makes us want to write.
No, I get it. My format has been audio and video stuff, and so I'm thinking of using some of these tools to turn that more into writing and turn it into sort of a, I don't know, multimedia type of thing. My trick has always been kind of the hosting of that. It requires some other kind of hoops there, but things have gotten a little bit easier. So you wrote just recently, the title of it is Stop Generating MCP Servers from REST APIs.
Yeah.
And I thought that might be a really fun, sort of topic for us to drill into a little bit and kind of compare them. I wanted to talk about generally APIs and the design of them for a while, and I'm hoping to maybe reach out to the creators of Fast API and get them on to talk a little bit about that and kind of what they're doing in the world and how that's kind of changed. But along that path, MCP has come along, and it's been interesting to think about, what's happening with that. And I guess there's a lot there if you're writing an entire book about it.
Yes, definitely. And a lot more than I anticipated when I started writing it. So it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little more about your consulting work?
Yeah.
If people were interested in following it, or because you have this background in data engineering, and it sounds like while you were at Visit, you picked up some additional skills in that. You kind of had kind of a role that morphed a little bit as you were there, it sounds like.
Yeah. And that's kind of by virtue, you join an early stage startup. When I joined Visit, they're pre-seed, and when you're it's like you and the VP of engineering are the only engineers working on things, and you have like one research person.
Yeah.
You have to learn a lot really fast, right? And you have to execute it. And working in startups generally, even like more mid-stage ones I'd worked at previously, I think kind of gave me the skills to be able to go independent, because I've covered entire products and features and things, everything from a single feature and bug up to a full product or project, from end to end, from doing design, architecture, getting feedback from stakeholders, user research, all the way to deployment and kind of the ops stuff and security. Having that whole like end to end experience is super valuable.
It's almost like a product manager.
Exactly. You really have to be one, especially for the types of roles I've been working in, which is a sort of engineer that speaks the language of the researchers and translates that research grade experimental work into a product that people can actually use and is robust and is scalable and, is readable as well. So that put me in a really good position to provide all sorts of services to people. So I started Stratis Data Labs, stratisdatalabs.com. And through that, I provide services spanning that whole range. I have a lot of experience with machine learning engineering, data engineering, ML ops, cloud engineering, all things AWS.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to help out my clients who anywhere from like large enterprises and to early startups do things like hire engineers and do technical assessments to
what should they be looking for in those people, stuff like that.
Exactly. Providing kind of advice there when you have a few candidates, setting up AWS accounts from the beginning and getting the organization all right, which is like so much work. But
I can imagine I was diving into that like 6 years ago, and
it's only gotten worse.
Changed. Yeah, it's like the acronym soup is just nuts.
Yes, exactly. So take that off their hands, doing things like built AI agents for big enterprises, I've built web backends and Go, like,
Yeah.
it's all this stuff. And that came from like my data experiences. Like, hey, we have the system we need to build or rebuild. Can you do the data modeling? Oh, by the way, do you want to implement the whole backend as well and the API for it? And it's like, well, yeah, I'm used to these kinds of asks from my time in startups. So yeah, of course, let's do that.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's hard to say like, oh, I have a niche, because I don't. There's a lot that I'm able to provide, which is like good and bad.
Yeah, do people, I don't know, frown upon that in a way? Think about like, oh, but we need a specialist. I've always been, I think maybe we even talked about this briefly, this idea of being of somebody who can be across all these things, this sort of generalist idea. I think maybe we were discussing it.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah,
and
maybe the second episode we did with David Amos, we were, yeah.
So yeah, like it's harder, I think, in a way to sell to people that you don't quite know.
Right.
A lot of my work has been through my network, which has been
that's good,
a huge blessing. Like something I'm very, very proud of. Like cultivated these people that, it's not to me. I hate networking. I hate calling that. Like these are people that I just like, kind of just talk to online and nerd out about the stuff that's interesting to us. And
they trust you now.
Exactly. You build a rapport with people, and I'm just, to me, it's just, I'm making friends, right? Like I'm talking to people that I enjoy, and, they seem to not hate me. And so like, it's really nice to
step one.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I just like kind of accidentally built this network because I like talking about what I do, because I like what I do. And I think that's something that
infectious.
Yeah, exactly. And it gets ignored, I think, because, in this field, people are, the stereotypes that we're introverted. And yeah, there are times like I just want to be heads down in code. I don't want to hear anything. Like I'm listening to music, I'm coding, and I'm in my happy place. But like outside of that, I like to read stuff, and that turns into being on, 8 different Discords and talking to people and like sharing articles and talking about personal stuff too. And, truly just making friends. I've lived my life online since I was, 11 years old. So like it's a natural way for me to socialize.
Yeah.
And so that helps a whole lot, because you build that trust with people, and they're like, hey, I liked working with you, or I would like to work with you because we have a good rapport already. I need help with this project. You want to help me with it?
Yeah. Are there any projects you've worked on lately that you can just give a synopsis of?
Yeah. So a big one earlier this year was building for this company, Metron. They do smart water meters. And so they kind of revamped their entire billing estimate system and billing system based on the actual consumption that they're reading from their smart meters. And so I did the data modeling for that, built out the database, the data tables, a lot of the data engineering work aside from ingestion, and then also built the entire back end for that, for the front end designers to kind of take on and build the web front end for. And it was all in Go. And like I learned to Go on the fly to do that. It was a really cool experience. And I did it while living in Greece for the most part. And that was fun because they were on Pacific time zone hours. I was on Eastern European summertime. So, our stand-ups are at like 11:30 at night for me. But I got to stay in Greece for 2 months. I can't complain about that.
No, that's good. It's so funny that your data engineering background comes to the fore in so many different ways that we've discussed it probably together, that I have a data background also. And to me, like structuring data and understanding it, and like, understanding how to label it, get it like categorized, understanding like how that relates to the business gets missed by a lot of people that are, CS graduate people. Like they think about algorithms and they think about other types of things and efficiency. And it's like, yeah, but you're managing this information that's coming in and out of your stuff, this data. And like, it is going to be, I don't know, in today's world, it's the majority of stuff. It's like, it's so funny that big data was the word when I got into podcasting and got into Python and so forth. And it's kind of like this weird thing that sort of disappeared. And it's like, no, it's still there, and maybe even larger.
Yeah.
It's just now it's something else.
Yeah, big data just got bigger.
Yeah. And now it's like there's all these other tools that interact with it. But the problem is still, and I think this will lead to us talking about it, the article is just, you still need to understand, how to manage that stuff and work with it. And it's so funny. Like,
yeah, like
it's
data,
the constant.
Data is that like deep resource that everything else kind of runs off of, and everything else is just communicating that data.
Yeah.
And so, to me, being a good engineer generally, but especially a data engineer, or if you're doing machine learning engineering where you're handling the data that goes into building models, whether it's LLMs or computer vision models or whatever it is, you have to be conversant with the data. You have to be conversant with the people using it. And you also have to be conversant with the business. You have to have some kind of business sense, or product sense even, to be able to do what needs to be done with that data efficiently. Like if you're good at algorithms, great, you need to be. But you also need to be good at all these other things. You need to understand data modeling. You need to understand the business to know how to model that data. You need to be able to communicate with tons of different people, because every organization I've been in, you and everyone that I've worked with as a consultant, your data is used by tons of different people with different experiences, different levels of technical understanding, very different expectations, and usually those butt heads with other people's expectations.
Yeah.
So like, there's a big communication skill, and it's not just between people; it's between people and computers and computers, and there's all these different types of communication, and yet something like MCP is really a communication layer for data, right? And for actions.
And it's different in the sense because REST APIs have been around for quite a while. It took me a little bit to just kind of wrap my head around the concept of it, but it's not that hard now. I mean, comparatively, things have gotten, more complex in some ways. Do you want to just dive in there a little bit? Like, how would you describe the differences? I know that's a bit of a tall order. Maybe we can thin it out a little bit and say, okay, how would you describe the difference between a REST API and what is happening with the MCP type of uses of that? Because there's been this thing that's been happening where people are saying, hey, you can take what you have in your REST API world, and there are tools that will like convert this structure, this REST API structure, to MCP.
Yeah.
And you reference in your particular post, and I'll probably go back to it a couple times, a post by Jeremiah Lowen. His blog is called Mostly Harmless. And he has one that says literally, stop converting your REST APIs to MCP. I love the subtitle also. Your auto-generated MCP is bad, and you should feel bad.
It's great. And honestly, that my article started out, and that's why it like dovetails so much with his, it started out as I was just going to write like a quick, I saw it and I was like, this is genius. I see this so much in different communities where people are learning MCP and using it. And I'm seeing this like constantly. There's a lot of argument about it. Like, no, just do it. It's all APIs. It's all the same.
Yeah.
And I saw this article. I was like, this is great. I want to just like fire off a quick post about it while I'm procrastinating from writing my book. And which is like, procrastinating from writing by writing is just, it makes no sense, but that's how my brain works.
No, it's how programming works, I think, too,
exactly.
Yeah.
Just go do that side project instead of what you're supposed to be working on.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it started out just as like kind of a brief commentary on that article to like bring it to more people, because I think it's a really important thing because of how popular MCP is.
Yeah, it's very popular. It's all, I don't know how many months it's been, but it's at least fall last year is when I really started to see some of this. Yeah.
That it came out in November. So like it was like almost instant.
We're almost a year now.
Yeah. And a lot of people working with it are from like web dev backgrounds or, other backgrounds. So they're kind of applying what they know to it. But it's an anti-pattern, and this post like really highlighted the issues with it really well. And on top of that, provided some really good alternatives to it, whereas like where it is useful, there is a world where there is some use in converting your REST API directly to MCP, but that's to like, as he mentions, it's to like bootstrap a project. Right. So I started writing about this and like saying like this is important, and I started thinking about it as I was writing, and I was like, well, we should think about the cost of it, because like every tool call is a round trip call to the LLM,
and that's the part I haven't dug into.
Yeah.
Because it's now agents talking to agents, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes, exactly.
And they can be rather chatty in this process, as far as the amount of tokens, and then that becomes like a bottom line as you, even just the person experimenting and setting it up, let alone a business unleashing this in a way and saying, hey, go to town, which is interesting because I feel like REST API programming wise is a little more focused, even though there is a wider target. You create endpoints, right? Areas that things can choose to interact with. Again, I'm trying to explain that. Maybe you can do a better job of explaining it, but what's the pivot there?
So there's, I think, like three major points here and like kind of the differences and why the interaction model is very different. So
Okay.
One of the major things is, REST APIs are really based around resources. So like getting an ID or getting a user object or changing that object, right? You're kind of interacting with underlying data.
Like pulling a record and then modifying fields across that record, maybe.
Exactly. MCP is built on top. So the underlying way it communicates is with RPC or remote procedure calls, which, believe it or not, predate REST APIs. And they use a specific one that uses JSON as kind of the way the data is shaped, making these calls and retrieving information. But it's based around actions, right? Rather than accessing data and doing something with it. Your remote procedure call is like calling a function. That's kind of what it's there to do.
A function versus a
like
request.
A resource, or like a function versus your data, right?
Okay.
And so that function can do a bunch of stuff with the data, but it provides like kind of a single access point for an action rather than giving you all the pieces of the data that you need to do an action on your end. And that kind of leads into the second point, which is that REST APIs are, if they're well designed at least, are really granular because that allows the user of the API, the consumer, to kind of decide what exactly they're going to do with the data and gives you a lot more flexibility as a human programmer making deterministic code that is going to do something. So if you provide access to an ID and a user object and, a permissions object, now the user can decide, okay, I can use the permissions object to decide if this user can do this thing, and then I'm writing the code to do the thing. Where with MCP and with tools in general for agents, and agents here I'm using Anthropic's definition, which is basically an LLM that can do tools.
Okay.
The definition varies widely. It's a new usage of a very already overloaded term, but we're just going to go with that, keep it simple.
Okay.
So basically, you have an application that makes LLM calls. You provide a list of tools, but those tools are actions, right? Tools in MCP are functions. If you're using the Python SDK, you're writing a Python function, and that's what's being called. So we're based around actions now.
Okay.
So what people are doing, though, is they're looking at resource access as an action when they convert their REST APIs to MCP. There's an impedance mismatch there. So you're making an action for getting the user ID, then another action getting the user object from the user ID, then another tool, another action for that permissions object.
Okay.
But what that ends up doing is you now have a ton of tools that the model has to decide which one to use for the action it's supposed to take. And every time you make a request to the model, you have to send that whole list of tools, all the descriptions, all that stuff, and that adds to your token count.
So this is like, again, another overloaded word. I definitely am guilty of it, is context.
Yes.
It's like you're having to repeat that amount of context to go into that, if you will, function each time as sort of a parameter.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now you're making the LLM choose between these functions. The request is can this user do this thing?
Okay.
So what you're doing by just mimicking your REST API as MCP tools, like every single action is a tool.
Yeah.
You give it too much context. Now, once you have too many tools, not only are you paying more per request, you're doing more requests because every tool use is a request. You have the initial user request. Then that comes back. Okay, it decides I need to use a tool. I choose this tool.
Okay.
Then it sends back to the application. Now there's another step. So it's going to go back, call the LLM again, choose a tool, come back, use the tool. And it goes back and forth for every single tool you use. So if one action requires 3 tools, 5 tools, whatever.
And you use the word tools, is that the shorthand for functions or like other things?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. A tool is basically a function being used by an agent.
Yeah, okay, great.
So to do all those calls where you have a defined action, you're checking one thing really, right?
Yeah.
So what you want to reduce the amount of tools available to the agent, and you reduce the context. You want to reduce all those round trips as much as possible.
Okay.
So now your interface goes from a granular thing to a holistic thing. And so the holistic thing is the action of finding if a user is able to do this action, right? So instead of hitting all those tools separately, you write a function that gets the ID, gets the object, and does all that on the application side. And maybe you're still hitting the REST API. That's fine. You can still do that. But it's doing that in one action. So there's now one tool where 3 used to be, and there's one round trip where 3 used to be. And what that does is it reduces your cost, it increases your accuracy. So tool choice has its own accuracy that you can track and you can do as part of your evaluations, which you should be doing. And if you're having to do 5 tool calls to do an action, you compound that error rate, because if the first tool choice goes 99% of the time, and then the next one does, and then those errors compound, because if your first tool errors out, that's an error. If your second tool errors out, you're going to get the wrong output. If it uses the wrong tool in any part of that chain, most likely it's going to give you the wrong result, or it's going to make you do a lot more requests and cost you a lot more money. So you want to minimize the opportunity for error, and by doing that, you reduce the number of tools that a single action that you can predict will take. When you're building tools, you're really wanting to build around actions that you know your agent will take. So like a text to SQL option, that's very common, right?
Okay.
Someone has a database, you want to access it with natural language, you can write text to SQL is a very common thing that LLMs can do. Some people write tools to make it even better.
Right.
And that's something that, functionality you want to be able to provide, that should be a single tool. It shouldn't be one tool for select statement, one tool for wheres and all that.
Let me guess. Your time series queries start fast, then begin to crawl as data grows. Traditional databases weren't built for timestamp data like metrics, events, or sensor readings. They crash on high-volume writes and time-based queries. InfluxDB was purpose-built for this. Millions of data points per second, automatic compression, sub-10 millisecond queries. It's like choosing the right Python data structure. Using a list when you need a set works, but it's not optimal. Time series data deserves a time series database. Visit influxdata.com/realpython. It's funny because in his article, almost near the end of it, I like to use the term agent story.
Yes.
And I thought that was interesting because that's a common thing. This is something that Mr. Trudeau, my co-host, often talks about, because he's been in that more corporate training world where they've talked about user stories, this idea of what is your user going to do and how are they going to interact with your tool and so forth. But in this case, this agent, it needs to have a story and a script that it's going to follow. And by giving it this wider set of rules that you were talking about, just confuses the whole thing. It makes it really complicated, and people want users to have massive choice and to make those decisions. But if the user is there and they can see all the decisions, then that is easy. But an agent, the idea is to make it autonomous, right? The idea, the maybe we'll use this example from time to time, this idea of oh, hey, buy concert tickets for my 4 friends and then come back and provide all the details through our preferred chat or whatever. And it's there's so many weird little things you have to think about that the agent might turn around and say, how are you going to pay for this? Or whatever, the different things that are in there. And you almost kind of need to narrow it down and think about it. And so I wonder about that in that process. Is that a good way of kind of looking at it somewhat?
Yeah, I would say like a lot of times you want to build things that are composable to empower. If your user is a developer, if you're building an API, you want it to be composable so they can kind of be free to do the things that they need to do and pick and choose from the menu.
Okay.
Because as humans who have time, who can look at things and read things, and if two things are named similarly, you're not going to really get confused. You might get confused, but not the same way that an LLM would.
Yeah.
That's easier to do and to kind of justify, right? It gives your users the power that they need to make their decisions. LLMs don't work that well. They do some things amazingly, but they're not human intelligence. They're not like art. There's some kind of something there that's interesting, but it's very alien to the way we work. And so we have to kind of work around it. And so with that example, that you're going to have requests to book concert tickets and send out notifications to your friends, right?
Right.
So your agent, that's a thing, that's an action. You can encode that. Most of that stuff is deterministic. You find the deterministic things that you can write in regular Python or whatever your language of choice is.
Okay.
And you write all that out. And that's one tool that it does. And it just calls that. It says, oh, wait, I need, this tool requires payment information. It will come back to you, seeing that the tool has that parameter, get that information, and then will continue its work. But that's a whole different story than, if you do that for a REST API. If you're just building, maybe you have a REST API where you have to get the ID, you have to do a search and get the ID of the event. Then you have to trigger do a post to send payment information. And then you have to call another API to
see if seats available.
Yeah, seats available. And you have to do all this stuff, which, if you're building an application around the REST API, you're consuming those things. You're kind of doing the same thing, but you're not leaving that to the agent because it's still a whole deterministic process. So it has to follow that script. So you might as well just write the code and you have one interface point for that. So you keep it simple for the agent. It has one thing it looks at. It doesn't have to compose all these actions. And it works a lot better when it's able to do that.
Okay. Yeah, so it's an interesting, like, pruning, narrowing sort of process. He mentions it a couple times, this idea of I'm trying to remember. There's a couple of very quotable little lines in there.
Yeah.
One is, obviously this subtitle, but an API built for a human will poison your AI agent.
Yep.
You're not empowering it, you're drowning it.
Yes.
And this whole idea of context pollution is this sort of silent killer. So it's like this, I didn't see these things initially, but I'm guessing it's just the amount of time of people playing with these things and thinking about it. You're writing this book. What is like this simple example that you show the student to say, here is a way for them to go from point A to B to C, to see this process in action, before you get into the complexity of, I think booking concert tickets is actually a fairly complex thing. Where would you start? Like, I don't know if you have an example.
Yeah. So in the book, it's kind of being divided into two sections. So the first section is really about understanding what each part of the MCP, I guess, overall SDK does, right? So you have two main actors in that. You have the client and you have the server. MCP is kind of inspired by language server protocol, which I think everyone who uses an IDE is somewhat aware of. That's what provides autocomplete and things like that. You have language servers that your application talks to.
That's why type checking is important sometimes, guys.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've become fully on board the MyPy, Pydantic, type hint, everything train. I love it.
If you want things to talk to other things, they need to know what those things are. Sorry.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Again, communication. So with that in mind, the first part of the book is really introducing agents, MCP itself, and what a client does, what it's there for, what the server does, what it's there for, what they look like, and then also transports, which is the communication layer underneath, which you can also build your own if you want to.
Okay.
And then the second half of the book is kind of like a focus project that you kind of build alongside me in the book. In that first half, I'm using, there's a lot of examples. Like the best way to understand is through looking at some code.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at all the examples of the client and seeing all the capabilities that a client offers to the host application, we use a simple calculator server, right?
Okay.
LLMs notoriously are not great at math. You ask it a complex math question. Now what they do, before they would just like fall on their faces. And now what they do is...
Or come up with crazy answers, right?
Yeah, exactly. They hallucinate something. It makes no sense because they're language models. They're not math. They're like human language models.
It's not often that we do, outside of word problems, that we do mathematical stuff
exactly
in text usually.
Right, exactly. So there are, a ton of examples, plus the type of reasoning it involves is like more symbolic than LLMs do because of how they're built.
Right.
But what you can do, models do now is they'll write Python code to do it because they know, okay, I need to add something or whatever. But the other thing you can do is, you have an agent and you have like an MCP server that provides an add function, a subtract function, a grouping function, whatever. So we use that as kind of the basis for showing off what a client can do and what kind of features it provides to a host application, because you need to actually run it against a server to see it in action. So there's a full-fledged server for that chapter that provides all that. And then there's also a fun function called count the R's, because people like to ask LLMs to count the R's in strawberry. And they're like,
the strawberry question.
It's like, yes. 6, obviously. And that's funny because LLMs don't receive text by character. They go by token. And that can be a single character. That can be a word stem. That can be white space. And so the way it sees...
So straw and berry, maybe something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so that's where it kind of falls on its face. It doesn't receive things character by character like traditional software does. So we have an R counter program, and you give the string to, the agent will give the text to the tool. The tool will just use regular Python and count the number of R's and return that number. And then the LLM makes an answer using that number.
Okay.
So yeah, I use a calculator with a few extra goodies as the kind of example for testing a client against in those examples. And then in the server chapter, which comes after the client chapter, the examples build that same server piece by piece.
Okay.
So you have the full finished code, all the code's in GitHub. It's under my GitHub. I can send the link and we can put it up if people want to look at the code as well.
Okay.
But the examples kind of build up that same server in the next chapter. I started with clients because that's what inspired me to write the book, was that there's very little information out there on how to build your own client. Everything was about building servers because that's super visible.
Is there a good way to define those two? They get thrown around a lot and they mean different in these different roles now.
Very overloaded as well.
Yeah.
So a client is the code that connects to an MCP server and gives any of that information over to the host application and large language model.
Okay.
So it's that interface that's built into an intelligent application that gives it agentic capabilities. It's that kind of like interface to the servers. It makes the connections, it manages a connection, does all that sort of stuff. And then the servers are what provide the additional functionality that you are augmenting your application with. They provide tools, aka functions. They provide prompts.
And a server can have multiple quote unquote functions?
Yes. Yeah. Server, each tool, you just use fast API style decorations. This function is a tool. This one provides a prompt and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And so you can actually provide prompts to the model so that it can better use the tools you provide in your server. They also provide resources. Those are the 3 main primitives that an MCP server provides. And resources are just like data sources. So whether it's like a SQL query or, a blob data, something like that, those are resources. So you need to handle all of those things. Tools are the biggest one, but that's what MCP servers provide, those things to the client. And that's what you augment your host application with if you're writing a client.
Okay.
And so like MCP really solves a distribution problem. So previous to it, I've built for clients, I've built agents and things like that. And you build all your tools by yourself. Like if you're wanting to interface with an outside API or something, you're writing the logic to interface with that and integrating it to the agent. MCP allows the creators of that API, of that product, to build a server and distribute it very easily through GitHub or by hosting it remotely.
Okay.
That your client can connect to. So you don't have to build the tool. Like someone who knows the product better than you do builds the agent API, let's say, with MCP, rolls it out to people, and then their agents can hit it and they don't have to worry about getting the tools right or staying up to date with, with any changes in the API or things like that, because that's all gets discovered whenever the agent connects to it, and the agent knows how to handle that.
Okay. Just to get a little more background, there's a large collection of servers that are out there. Like that's kind of a common thing that I see reported upon. It's like, oh, if you want to check out examples, there's lots of them. I don't know if you want to list a couple of them. We could talk about like the lack of clients and why you're kind of focusing on that. But like, what are examples of like servers that people could interact with currently?
Yeah, so there are a few good ones that I've been using just for like my coding workflows.
Yeah.
AWS has a bunch of servers for their documentation,
okay,
and for like best practices and things like that. So you connect that to your coding agent, and all of a sudden your agent has the ability to search AWS documentation. You say, how do I set up this EC2 instance?
Okay.
And it will go and it'll use one of the resources provided or a tool to get that information and give it to you, rather than rely on whatever data it was basically trained on.
I'm thinking Matrix style, like, oh, I know Kung Fu now.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Right? It's like jack in, and now I know EC2 or whatever. I can speak AWS.
Exactly. And actually, I love that, and I'm going to start. I'm stealing that now because
you're welcome.
Thank you. I will credit you.
Okay.
But yeah, you plug this in, and your agent knows Kung Fu. Or even worse, even harder, AWS. And so like,
exactly.
they have a CDK server that's all CDK stuff. If you do any infrastructure as code, like it's super helpful.
Right. And that stuff is, it's just convoluted because it's so many different acronyms, and they assume that you know all of them. And then also like the division lines between the redundancy of certain things is like, okay, well, this is all about IPs. This is all about security. This is all about user identity. And it's like, it kind of gets hard to understand unless you are an infrastructure person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so much documentation that you have to sort through to do anything, which it's good that it's there because it's necessary.
Yeah.
But having an agent able to access it and kind of pull all the things together that you actually need makes the whole process just much more efficient. And if you know it somewhat, you can be like, okay, that's a hallucination. But when you use these servers that are built pretty well, you'll find that like the hallucination rate,
they're tightened up, huh?
Yeah, exactly. You give more, you give context at the right time to the agent.
Okay.
And so then it's not guessing at things because it has more information. Another one that I like is Context 9, and it's kind of the same thing, but for all documentation.
Off of like different programming languages, libraries and things like that?
Yes, exactly. So there used to be, I mean, I'm sure it's still around. I haven't used it in a long time. I think it was called like Dart or something, that it downloaded every languages and every major frameworks documentation.
I've talked about this tool before. I have to go back and search my own work.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think I was using it around the time we last talked. That's how long ago. And so Context 9, or maybe it's Context 7. I keep mixing them up. It's Context 9 or 7. But yeah, it kind of does that for LLMs. It has all that documentation all up to date.
Okay.
So if you're doing a like agentic coding thing, you'll have better information, more up to date information on. Ask it like, hey, how do I design this table, or is this Pythonic? That's something I like to do, especially if I'm working with a language that I'm less familiar with.
Yeah.
I'll write something and be like, hey, is this the way to do things in this language? And you can get pretty good answers. And I always ask for sources too, because like, I'm not going to trust you right away, especially for something this squishy.
That's good. Yeah.
And you'll get like a bunch of Stack Overflow links or like documentation links. So that's really nice. Those are the ones I use like day to day, but it really depends like on what you're building. There's so many servers out there. They're very varying quality, I'll say. Like MCP is new.
Yeah.
This whole paradigm is new.
It sounds like the coding world I mean, generally has embraced this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, across the board, LLMs, I was talking to Jody about this, that they're large language models. And so they're focused on languages, and programming is language. I mean, when you think about it, and the overall syntax of a programming language is smaller than, say, Greek that you're been practicing and learning, and uses and so forth, in ways that things can be combined together, even with adding libraries. So it makes sense that world, to me, again, extrapolating, that it makes sense. What is the next token? What is the next thing? And so forth. In programming, there's lots of examples, unless you're looking at COBOL or Fortran potentially, or other examples that are not as GitHub, crawlable. So I think that's really interesting. And so that's kind of where the funny thing is that the pitching that happens, a bit of the hype cycle stuff, is that, oh, we're going to be able to use it for the concert ticket example, but I don't know if Ticketmaster has set that up, or whatever, the people that are control. And it always kind of, that is the part that baffles me. So it's interesting to hear your examples. The other examples when I was learning API stuff was like maps would be a good database that you can kind of go to, or weather data, or other things like that, where it was like pretty, the term atomic was used often in I think his article also, this idea of like giving something all that atomic data is a little bit much
Yes.
for MCP, and for the context window, this idea of polluting things. So
yeah, exactly. And so there are a lot of people, a lot of organizations that are building official servers. There are people that are like, hey, if you have an API key, this will kind of wrap the API, and some might be well designed where it's like a whole action hitting several APIs, but the agent only has to worry about the one tool. Some are just like straight up translate. I mean, there are companies that exist to have products that change your REST API into MCP, and a lot of them are just like dumb, straight translations rather than incorporating things into a holistic tool.
Okay.
And so you have this very varying thing. I think it's actually a brilliant part of Anthropic's strategy when they released MCP was that there was all this focus on servers, because that's so visible and they're also so easy to make. The downside of that is anyone can make one, and this is same reason why Perl had such a bad reputation, like kind of in the late 90s, and because it made it really easy for anyone to write code for the web. So you had all these different kind of very varying levels of quality, right? And so you're seeing the same thing with MCP, but with the added complication that no one really knows exactly what the best practices are yet. We're still figuring that out. So
those articles are starting to come now.
Exactly. Right? It's just really starting to pick up. We're starting to figure out how to do things in the most optimal way.
Okay.
And so there's that. And that kind of ties into that focus on servers, also ties into why I wanted to write the book, because I was building a client in December and January, and it was just like, I'm just kind of guessing and checking at this point. I'm reading through the source code because there's some documentation, but not very much. And it's not really aligned with a use case that makes sense to me, where there is any. So that's why I ended up pitching the book, and we're here now. The documentation there has improved, but what Anthropic did when kind of this started was they partnered with a bunch of IDEs and other applications to help them build the clients, so that when they released MCP, all of a sudden Cursor, Windsurf, Visual Studio, VS Code.
Again, the language tools were there first, which makes sense.
They targeted developers and they worked with these to have clients available so people could use the servers that others were going to build.
Right. And their clients are the IDEs and what have you, and all these other tools that are...
Exactly. And it makes sense too, because like IDEs are people who build them are familiar with language server protocol. This is extremely similar to it.
Right. Okay.
So it is a natural connection. Anthropic's models have always been known for being like some of the best for code.
Yeah.
It's just a very natural way of, a natural relationship. So, but we're seeing a lot more growth now just because you got the programmers on board. Now everyone's like building the tools and, using MCP because they were the first ones to be able to play with it. And they're the ones that are going to build, or we're the ones that are going to build. So
here, go build something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's it was a really good way of introducing and launching this thing that is open and everyone can use and modify and contribute to. And yeah, I was really impressed with how it rolled out, but I firsthand saw the lacking. I was building a framework for building agents.
Yeah.
I wanted to support MCP, and I had to build the client because, people, that's what our target was, is people building the agentic applications, and there just wasn't much there.
And the guidelines are kind of a little fuzzy.
Exactly. Yeah. And what I ended up building worked, but it wasn't, I look back at it now with the knowledge I have from writing the book and like digging into the source code and really spending a lot of time on it. I was like, oh, this is so bad. But it wasn't there. So
it's so weird to build at such the edge of this stuff, on the frontier of it,
That's what I like about it, though. It's
okay. It makes it exciting.
It's very exciting. There's a low barrier to entry. So you have a lot of people coming in and trying their hand at something new and exploring. And you have people who aren't so cynical and, don't know what they don't know. So they're trying new things that you wouldn't have thought of. So the communities are really interesting. And there's so much you can do with it, so much we don't know. To me, that makes it exciting. I like being kind of on the frontier of things.
Would you say you were there? I mean, REST APIs, gosh, I don't even know when we would say that started as like super, super popularity, but
I will say my first job, we were using XML over SOAP.
Oh, okay. So that's early before REST, became much more popular.
Yeah, I think REST was popular. Like, I remember learning about REST APIs when I was like self-studying to get my first job, because I feel
like mobile made the big difference there.
So, yeah, but okay. I started as, in this career, at least, professional developing, I started in 2014.
Okay.
So, and like REST APIs were around, but I think like a lot of the enterprise stuff, and that's where I started, was just still using like old school SOAP.
Yeah.
And all that, which was horrible. But
yay, XML.
It was so great.
Hey, Stephen, how's it going?
Hi, Chris. All fine here.
We have something new to announce. Actually, you have more of it to announce because you're running the thing. But we have another set of courses that are live courses that people can check out.
Yeah, so we chatted a few months ago about the intermediate deep dive, which, as the name says, was for intermediate learners.
Yeah.
And beginners were telling us, how about us? And there we are. We now have a live cohort-based course for beginners.
All right.
So the format is going to be very similar. It's an 8-week course, live sessions spread throughout the week, but it's also flexible. I mean, we know people are busy. People have work, study, family, the dog to walk, whatever it might be. So we've designed this to be flexible so that people can do most of the learning at any part of the day they want.
Okay.
Apart from live sessions, of course. Live sessions, they're live, right? So,
yeah.
But most of the learning can happen in a flexible way. So this is for absolute beginners, or even those who've there are many who've started learning the basics, and then often they realize, I need some structure, I need some live guidance, right? But this is a beginner's course. So for those who are early on in their journey.
In episode 246, we talked to a group of people that had gone through the intermediate deep dive. If you have a chance to check it out, if you're interested in the course, you can kind of learn a lot of the things that people got out of it. Of course, those were people, again, who had some time already programming for a while and were wanting to kind of put things together in different ways. What I might ask you a little bit about is, some of the things that are different, but I think one of the things that's going to stay the same is this sort of concept of accountability, which was like key to so many of the people that I talked to on that episode. They really enjoyed this idea of like, okay, I've been putting this off for a while. I've been wanting to be a coder. I really want to do stuff with Python, but something's been holding me back. And maybe I need this thing where I need to be there for week after week, having other people that I meet with and can converse with.
I mean, I agree with you. I think the accountability, I've heard it many times from learners of all levels. And I think there are two aspects to it. One, you've mentioned it already, that you've got a cohort of others who are learning with you. It feels like, in part, you want to keep up with them, and also you don't want to let them down, because as a group, you want to move forward. So I think that keeps people going. But also every day you have learning material. And if it says this is today's learning material, there's a bit of pressure for doing it today and not tomorrow. So I think that helps. What's different is, the main thing is, this is Python for beginners, not intermediate. So it's targeted, it's covering the basics. There's no prior knowledge. So anyone even those people who thought, I've never done any programming before, is this for me? Yes, this is for absolute beginners. And as such, we're going to look at those fundamental topics that you always need. Whatever you want to go on to do with Python in the future, you always need those basics, the loops and the defining functions and all of those topics. And I'm not going to go and list them all.
Sure.
It's all the basics. It's where do I get started if I want to learn how to program?
One of the things we focus on a lot, especially on the show, is putting the stuff to action. Is that still part of it?
In fact, we have even more projects in this one than we had in the intermediate deep dive.
Oh, cool.
So the way it works is it's an 8-week course. The final 2 weeks are entirely project-based. So the final 2 weeks are a capstone project that builds on everything we've done in the previous 6 weeks. But even throughout the first 6 weeks, we have those mini projects going through those weeks.
Okay.
So typically every week there's a mini project. And I think that's really important, right? Because the theory is important. You want to know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Right.
I really believe in understanding why you need to do something, and therefore I teach in that way as well. But you also want a project to actually see it all happen in front of you. And I don't mean see it all happen in front of you, because projects, the students will be working on those projects. So they will be making it happen. And that's important as well.
They'll see themselves constructing something that actually, then shows off the things that they've learned.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool.
And of course, we have plenty of live interaction. So I'll be running this course. Apart from the live sessions, we also have the forum, which is, I'm going to say 24/7. I do have to sleep from time to time, but broadly speaking, participants can post at any time. And, it's very active and lively. We've had this in the previous cohort courses we've run. And it's a great place because as you're learning, you want to be able to ask questions.
Right.
And the live sessions are a great place to do that. But sometimes you want to ask a question right now.
Yeah.
And you'll get, unless it's my nighttime, you'll get an answer pretty much right now as well. So I think that keeps it, I think of the forum as the glue that sort of binds everything together. The content you do every day, the live sessions, the projects, and then there's the forum, which keeps everything going. Let's say 24/7.
Nice. Did you see people exercising one of the skills that I've developed as a teacher, to learn something really well? If you teach it to another person or try to explain it to another person, it really helps. Did you see that in the forums before?
Yes, and that's what's great, because I've always encouraged other students to sort of, you ask questions, but if you feel like you can answer someone else's question, go ahead and do it. And it doesn't matter if you get it wrong, because I'm still there.
Right.
I'll still join into the conversation. So
you can help tweak it in the right direction.
Exactly. You're not going to do any damage, right? So go ahead. And yes, I think it's great to see that, where students are answering each other. And then this is when you get those conversations. And sometimes the most interesting questions come from those conversations that people are having.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of dive a bit deep into certain topics, and it's always fun. It's fun for me as well when I'm running these sessions, but I know from students that they find it useful when sort of we go off a bit of tangent, but then you bring it back in and suddenly there's that aha moment. It's like, now I get it. It often comes from those conversations on the forum or even the live sessions, right? One live session a week is always a structured session, but the remaining 2 live sessions are question and answers.
Oh, okay.
The idea is that there's plenty of Q&A time, so that's, well, as it says, students can ask the questions. And then again, I often like to say it's not just Q&A, it's Q&A and D. Is a discussion that comes after the question and answers. They're always fun conversations, so I'm looking forward to having lots of those chats with the beginners who are learning with us.
A few questions here. What would you say people should expect as an outcome?
So this is a beginner's course. Therefore, we're getting the key fundamentals, the foundations of any programming you want to do. And I think what participants in this course will get is they'll understand those fundamentals, they'll understand them well, and they'll also understand how to use them. This is where the projects come in.
Okay.
It's not just understanding how to write a for loop and understanding how to define a function, but how do all these pieces of the jigsaw come together to create a program?
Okay.
So I think, in fact, we're calling this Python for beginners, code with confidence. And that confidence is really important. I often compare learning how to program with learning a foreign language. Some of your audience will have experience with this. And
sure.
You get to a point where you sort of understand the language well enough to read it,
right,
but not to speak it. And I think with programming, you get exactly the same thing. Sometimes you get to a point where you're confident enough to read some code that someone else wrote. But when you start with a blank page, it's much harder to write code. And the confidence we're looking for here is that confidence to be able to not just understand code, but to have the confidence to write it starting from a blank screen. So that's, I think, an important aspect of what we want to achieve in this course.
One of the things I think about also is for people who haven't been in school for a while, potentially, is getting back into how do I learn, or in this case, how do I learn a programming language? What are the sort of skills that I might develop? Is that something that you focus on too?
So that's why I think the live aspect is really important, because that's where we can look beyond just the theory and see how to gel everything together to make it make sense.
Great. So I guess we should include some details here. When are they running and how do people sign up?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll provide the link to the courses. The first courses are coming up in mid-October, so a few weeks away from now.
Okay. I will definitely include links in the show notes for everybody to find out more information. There's a lot more detailed information there also. What's the link that people would go to?
Yeah, and we have a nice and easy URL for people to go to, realpython.com/live.
Okay.
On that URL, you'll find all the details about the course. I'm also running some live info sessions. You'll find the links there as well. So if any of your listeners want to come and chat with me a bit more beforehand, I'm running some live sessions to talk about this course so that people can find out whether it's writing for them.
So if people want to learn more, again, it's realpython.com/live. And there's more details about how people can attend these more information sessions if they want to see a little bit more. I don't know how long those are, like an hour or something like that.
Yeah, typically it's going to be an hour session. It really depends on how many questions people have. And sometimes these stretch longer just because people have lots of questions. But yes, typically it's going to be 1 hour sessions on Zoom.
Yeah.
So anyone who wants to find out more can come to those sessions.
Great. Bring your questions.
Exactly.
Well, we're planning on doing an episode soon also to talk a little bit more about being a beginner and learning Python right now. And I'm sure this course will come up in it again, but it's great to get this information out and get people checking out another course.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
All right. Gosh, it's like deeper than I thought as far as like all this stuff to kind of get into, but I'm intrigued by it. I guess maybe what we could leave people with is some resources, if you can think of some, to be able to stay on top of it. Because I feel like you're writing this book and you're having to kind of watch what's happening around you in this space. And are there good go-to stuff? It sounds like Anthropic did a good job releasing this stuff. Are they staying good as far as like, okay, well, this is how things are evolving and how people are using it, or are there other resources you suggest?
So yeah, there are a few communities that are pretty good.
Okay.
One thing I would say following Anthropic, and also directly there's a separate site for Model Context Protocol. I think it's modelcontextprotocol.io or something.
All right.
And new releases are there. All the work is happening on the GitHub, on the Model Context Protocol GitHub page.
Yeah, I think I saw that. Yeah.
So everything you see about SDK development, protocol development,
it's very open.
Yeah, it's extremely open, very community driven.
Otherwise, you're not going to get your protocol to be successful today. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So those are the best, but there are also on Reddit, there's our MCP and our Model Context Protocol. One of them has a Discord chat that's extremely active.
Nice.
But yeah, I think honestly, the official sources are great. They just released a model registry from the MCP group.
That's what I was wondering about. Yeah.
And so that's out. That was just released like 2 nights ago. I'm actually trying to find some time today to make a little
blog
blast
post about
in the newsletter. Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
And to announce it because it's something that's been needed. Like people have been building for it. And in something I think is really great, I was kind of talking about just now about the Model Context Protocol culture, is that it's so open that they specifically made the registry, they made an API for it and a way of connecting clients and servers to it so that people who have built their own registries can hook into the main canonical registry and pull all the data from it for free and display it, modify it, take a subset of it, do whatever, and show it on their like server store. So you can
stay current. Yeah.
If you want to stay current, or if you want to like build your own curated store, you can. Or you can build like a private one that only allows servers that you've vetted to be used in your enterprise. You build your private server and you use that same API to pull all that from the canonical registry.
This has been tested with said and said product.
Exactly. Yeah. Like we've looked at this code. We're, pinned this version of the server, and this is where you can get it from or how you connect to it or whatever. So
yeah, cool.
They made it extremely open and like hackable, which is exciting and good to see that they're kind of continuing that culture.
Yeah.
I think that's driven a lot of the success of it.
Do you think, obviously this idea of like converting, and like the other article we mentioned, and I'll provide links to all this stuff. This idea of, he had like, I guess 3 steps to like, okay, bootstrap, basically, yes, you can convert from a API, but think about it, like in the sense that, don't deploy with everything, curate that aggressively was another point, and then think about this sort of agentic story or whatever, how you want to do this. And I think he had like a sentence: as an agent given context, I use tools to achieve outcome, which I think is interesting way of kind of approaching it.
I think the whole process is a really good way of looking at it, right? So if you want to bootstrap something and start playing with it, do the conversion, like fast MCP, which the first version was incorporated into the Python SDK.
Okay.
It's an easier way of building servers. They have a tool that does this.
That does the import, right?
Yeah. And so it's not like people are doing this who don't know what they're doing. It's just not being used in the right way. So one of the right ways of doing it is bootstrapping. And so I think that is a good use of those. And then you can kind of very viciously cut things. You're looking at that code and you can cut things. You can see what access patterns might actually be and reform things into a single function.
I feel like you're commenting out the things that you're like, okay, don't touch all this stuff.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. That's exactly what you're doing. You're making like your variables don't have to be compact. They have to be readable, which makes like Python's kind of helpful for this.
Yeah. Because
all that stuff gives hints to the LLM of what data they need, what it needs to look like, and if they need to call this tool.
Okay. Yeah, there's like he talks about, there's endpoints that why is that still in there?
Exactly.
The delete everything endpoint, or what have you, like that should be only for certain, people allowed as far as we talked about permissions and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, he calls it aggressive curation, which is, I think more of culling maybe, but it's, that is what you're doing. And then I think that third part where he says, anything that's really important, you need to make an agent story and think about it from that point of view of the agent.
This tool is going to be walking in and doing this stuff. And
exactly. Like
it has a different approach than, than a user.
This is what's actually going to be using your code. So you need to think from the perspective of that thing using your code. It's not a user. I mean, it is a user, but it's not a human user.
Right.
And it comes with its own baggage that humans don't because of how they're built and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good framework for going from a web developer used to REST APIs to becoming an agent developer building these agent APIs.
Yeah. This will be quite the evolving story.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's been a while, and I think the questions might have changed since I had you on to ask them. But what are you excited about that's happening in the world of Python right now?
Yeah, I think I'm so deep with the MCP stuff and with LLMs and playing a lot with it. I'm just excited to see how this continues and how the Python community continues to use and embrace it. I think Python has always been very well positioned for machine learning in general, not just Gen AI, but like computer vision, NLP. It's always been kind of one of the major languages in the field because of all the frameworks.
Is there like a simple thing you can think of that like makes it perfect for it? I always think of the iteration. It's so fast to kind of create code and stand it up.
I think that's exactly what it is. A lot of this work comes from people who are like PhDs, like from academia.
Right.
And besides R, like Python's the big academia thing because you can so quickly pick it up. And so the ease of the language, the natural language-ness of it, and then also like the crazy amount of very well-developed, very mature frameworks for doing machine learning stuff, whether it's SciPy, TensorFlow, PyTorch, a lot of them have gotten, translations into other languages, but the community is it is already there. It's been there for Python for a very long time, from like when deep learning started, basically. It's just there's that inertia to it, so people are still building for it.
Yeah.
And just seeing where that goes in the context of generative AI, LLMs, agents, memory agents is another thing I'm really excited about.
Not familiar with that. What does that change?
Basically, you give an agent memory for a user that it interacts with, or for just everything that it interacts with. And so it can refer back to that, so that, you have context for conversations. It can learn things about people. So on Blue Sky, a lot of people have built these bots that they sound eerily human because they have this memory and they remember users and they remember previous interactions and they talk about them and refer to them.
Interesting.
There's a company called Letta, Letta, that provides a memory framework for agents.
Okay.
And it's really interesting to see. What's interesting to me is not like business use cases or anything like that, but people are building these as art projects. And
well, you had your own little art project for a while there.
Exactly.
Meme stocks. So
exactly. So like ridiculous kind of art projects like that. It's just unleashing a new level of creativity. Like, I can make this personality and it can do these interesting things, and it can map out connections on the network because it's interacting with people who want to interact with it, and it's being shaped by those interactions as well because it updates the memory.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, and something I want to poke and prod at some point is a kind of decaying memory. So like in our brains, when we access memories, every time we access them, they kind of modify, right?
Slightly change.
They don't just sit there and they're not static. And so playing with one where like every time it reaches for a memory, there's a chance of something changing in that memory is kind of interesting to me, again, as kind of just an art type of project to see what happens.
Yeah.
I think that level of creativity and like hacker ability is super interesting. And I think LLMs have brought out a new level of it, both in that context and then in coding. Like, right, I've had this idea of these ready to build these playlists that you use kind of like a query language to assemble, like ephemeral playlist of music, because I want to listen to sludge metal and also funk and also like traditional Greek music together. That's what my brain is feeling. Like a static playlist.
I'm with you. Like the the streaming music services are the most basic.
Yeah.
Like as far as like this person likes this, and it's like, no, I like all this different stuff. And it's like, okay, well, let me just throw it all together. And it's like, no, like it you need to kind of like change things up. There was this tool I used years ago, and I'm probably going to like create it myself again. It was like it was something mood.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a mood based thing, and it had sliders for the music, and you could it was on iOS, and it would just look at your library, but it would like, choose like the tempo, and it's like, okay, I'm kind of like feeling a little aggressive right now. And it's like, okay. And you could do that stuff. And it was really great. And I'm like, I want that, but to apply it to something else. So that sounds fun.
Yeah, that's something I've wanted to build. I just haven't had the time to go and like, I designed it, and I just don't have the time to like do the code and look, do the constant research to just like hand write the code.
Sure.
Well, now I can prompt, I have very detailed specs. I can prompt an agent to like help me build, at least get the first draft, and I can review it. I can adjust it. I can move stuff around.
That stuff I've been impressed with. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just gets you past that like blank page, so you have something there to kind of work off of. And I've seen people like write, there's that study, I'm going to write about too soon, and I'm going to be try to be very diplomatic about it. But the study that like, it doesn't actually provide, agent encoding doesn't provide any speed up to experienced developers. Well, none of your experienced developers had knowledge using had a background using these tools. And the couple that you said were experts needed handholding to use the tool that you told that they ended up using. They didn't know how to use that specific tool.
Yeah. I feel like the story is really convoluted. I tried to touch on it with Jody, and I agree. It's been interesting to kind of see it in the different areas.
Yeah.
And I talked about if you're building something from new, ideating greenfield, whatever you want to call it, versus brownfield, like there's these differences there.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about context, like how much information are you feeding into it? But I think it depends what you are doing in your building.
Yes.
You pay attention to somebody like Simon, and he's like, I've built like 100 different tools recently, and it's like, that's since I talked to him last.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how you get there. That's the other trick. Is like it's going to be a journey for people to do it, and even if the LLMs do stay where they are, like if there is sort of a diminishing returns and a potential overfitting, is what we called it, we're still at a good place. Like, I think for us, the programming developer type of people, if there's an embrace of it and a codifying of it, I don't know about the rest of it. And again, there's a lot of these people that are jamming this stuff in everything, and it's like, okay, which is a little frustrating, because then it like it does, it ends up making everything else potentially have a negative veneer over it.
Yeah, that's my big concern with the areas. Like, people are getting negatively polarized against it because you're having these ridiculous claims by CEO / carnival barkers that are saying, we're going to replace all these people. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, you're not going to. Like, but what doesn't make the news is, the companies that are succeeding in this space aren't trying to replace anyone. They're trying to augment use, so people not just more productive, but are able to do things they weren't able to do before.
Right. Which is focused, but still a powerful boost.
Yeah. So like the personal project examples, like you said about Simon, like you can bang out something really fast, and I feel like we're kind of coming back to this era of like bespoke tools that people are just building because they have a need that someone else isn't providing.
It's happening with blogs too, which is fascinating to me too. It's like the dead internet theory. It's like, no, the dead like social media stuff. Like all that stuff is so like
the walled gardens, and
everybody's exhausted with it because the algorithms are just so polluted. Talk about context pollution and so forth, that it's just not an enjoyable experience. And like going and finding your own stuff is work, but that us who have been around for a while and have messed around with the internet, that's what it was like, and you like, okay, this is this thing called RSS. Let's go back there.
Bring it back.
Yeah.
Yes,
anyway,
please.
We will go down that whole rabbit hole. Will be another 30 minutes.
but it just reminds me of those, like it was before my time, but the days like in the 80s where people were homebrewing their own software because like no one else was going to build it.
That was it.
Now people, there's so many people building software, but I think people have more like niche needs, and you have these like smaller, tighter, more granular communities of people. This, I think, will kind of usher in a time of people building their own software through agents, because the barrier of entry is much lower, but more people are using computers, more people have these needs. And
that was the whole like selling point of the original have a PC at home prompt appears.
Yeah,
what are you going to do with this thing?
Exactly.
And now there's actually somebody there to help you with it.
Exactly. So I'm hopeful, and I feel like making it more time efficient to write your own programs that are just for you. Like, it encourages more people to do that and make cool stuff and play more so than just like, oh, work and I don't want to do this because I've been doing this all day, or like I don't have the time to learn how to code. I'm going to like work on this prompt and I'm going to figure it out by writing this little thing for myself and like working on it until it works. Whether, I think there's people that the whole vibe coding thing, but moving from that and be like, okay, I've gone beyond the point where this is helpful. I need to actually do the code myself. I think it's another entry point, but also like I said, reducing the time to make something will allow people to build things just for themselves again. And I think that's exciting.
Yeah. It'll get them past the hurdle of like, just starting.
Exactly.
In a lot of ways. Yeah. Cool. So what's something you want to learn next? This doesn't have to be about coding.
What do I want to learn next? All the things.
That's why we get along.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much out there. So like I want to kind of dig into these memory agents on the coding side. I want to get back to learning Elixir. I know this is a Python podcast, but I've played with it off and on in the past, and I really love it. Coming from a data engineering background where you have Elixir uses kind of these pipelines and things like that, it works in my brain.
Yeah.
I want to spend time on my bass. I want to have some time to play bass. That's the other thing. And then like continuing my Greek studies. Yeah, I mentioned when we were talking earlier, like I have a 3.5-year-old and she's starting Greek school soon, and we live in Greece 2 months a year.
That's great.
And I just want to kind of continue that so I can, talk to people there, get around there. I love learning languages generally. Like when I was in high school, I was learning Spanish and Japanese simultaneously, which led to some really interesting sentences because I was just like, jumbling them up.
The structure of sentences are different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I taught myself how to read Hangul and Korean to like impress a girl, which doesn't work. I was 14 though. I was pretty dumb.
Right.
And but like I've always loved learning languages. That's why I got into programming. Like I wrote my first program to annoy my dad when I was like, I don't know, 11. I had a book on learning C, and I wrote a script that just made his motherboard beep randomly like throughout the night. It's like, yes. Yeah. But like I love learning languages, whether it's computer or human ones.
It's such a kid trolling thing for.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's fun.
So yeah, I want to continue, my Greek studies and kind of get to the next level of fluency there.
Yeah. Are people in Greece friendly to that? Like when I went to Paris, you try to speak French and they're like, "Man, why are you speaking? I speak English to you." It's like, okay.
Yeah, people are really, really lovely there. Even like where we stay, it's outside of the center of Athens. It's a suburb, and like the older people don't really speak Greek, but they will talk to you as much as you will allow it. And
I feel like you get out of a city, they're way more, hey, you're bothering to learn our language.
Exactly.
That was my case in France, like too. So, but yeah.
Yeah. And in Athens, like, I'll order things here and there. I'll talk to people, but everyone's trying to work and do that. So you don't want to slow people down.
Right.
But I'll try to order and they'll hear my accent and they'll just switch to English, which is fine. And whatever makes it go smoother. But a lot of times when you do have time to talk to someone, they're very thrilled that you're learning and that you're bothering to and that you're kind of coming back from the diaspora.
Yeah.
Still embracing the culture.
That's cool.
And they want to help you learn. So yeah, those are the things that are like top of mind. But my project list and like things I want to read, book list, is just like, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I have my full bookcase of books. Those are just books I haven't read yet. I have 2 more bookcases of books that I have read. And then I have my priority list on my desk behind me and on my floor. And that's how I organize. It's a mess.
That's good. Yeah. So Kyle, what's the best way people can follow your work online?
So I have my personal blog, kylestratis.com. That's STRATIS. And that's just kind of, I post anything durable or just anything that's interesting to me there. So there's stuff about travel. There's stuff about, my family. There's stuff about programming stuff there. A little bit of everything. Some ham radio stuff. Anything that tickles my brains there. The signalpath.xyz is my AI newsletter. It's pretty sporadic, but it's in your mailbox when it happens. It's not too intrusive. It won't overwhelm you.
It seems like it's ramping up, honestly.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a little more disciplined posting there.
I think it's partly due to the book also, like spurring the ideas. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, there's more MCP content just because I'm like super immersed in that. I'm on LinkedIn as Kyle Stratis, Blue Sky, kylestratis.com.
Okay.
And then my consultancy is stratisdatalabs.com. If you need any augmentation of your team, or you need to bring in some Gen AI, machine learning engineering, any sort of that expertise, I'm available and can help you out. And we can schedule a call through the website. I have a Calendly link set up there. Awesome.
Well, it's been fantastic catching up with you. And
likewise.
Thanks for answering all this stuff about MCP for us. I think it's going to be a topic that's going to be ongoing for the next year for me.
Yeah, I think so. It's really exciting, and I hope the kind of the momentum continues, because it's freeing up a lot of new and interesting ways of using tools, and also or using agents, and also like how we code. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Well, it's great talking to you again.
Same.
And don't forget, if you're working with any timestamped data in your Python projects, you owe it to yourself to try the right tool for the job. InfluxDB makes time series data effortless. Whether you're building analytics dashboards, monitoring applications, or tracking performance metrics, join millions of developers who've already made the switch. Get started today at influxdata.com/realpython and see the difference the right database makes. I want to thank Kyle Stratis for coming back on the show this week. And I also want to thank Stephen Gruppetta for dropping in. And I want to thank you for listening to the Real Python podcast. Make sure that you click that follow button in your podcast player. And if you see a subscribe button somewhere, remember that the Real Python podcast is free. If you like the show, please leave us a review. You can find show notes with links to all the topics we spoke about inside your podcast player or at realpython.com/podcast. And while you're there, you can leave us a question or a topic idea. I've been your host, Christopher Bailey, and look forward to talking to you soon.